You're good. Hear you loud and clear. That's better. That's good.
We're going to begin on page number 10 with the singing of Hine Matov. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Manayim Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. The middle of that page, Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. V'shokach lecha el ritzonecha. V'shokach lecha yananai el ritzonecha. Yarutz alecha kimo hayah. Yishtakabei yananai el mul hadarecha. Yedid Nefesh. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. Yedid Nefesh Avarachaman. V'shokach lecha el ritzonecha. V'shokach lecha yananai el ritzonecha. Shabbat Shalom. One of the fun things about the summer is that it's all the regulars, which means I don't have to do that long introduction where I tell you where the bathrooms are.
I'm still waiting for you to do, and if the lights go out, the lights will light up on the floor. That's
Yes.
all we don't say.
I do want to say something, though, about the fact that basically every single act of Shabbat is governed by 4 different verbs. And so of the 613 commandments in the Torah, 4 of them kind of oversee all of what you do on Shabbat. One is to keep, one is to remember, one is to honor, and one is to enjoy or delight. In Hebrew, shomer, zachor, oneg, and kavod. Not in the same order I just did the English translation. And I was actually doing a funeral today and talking about the fact that sometimes doing the real kind of honor stuff for Shabbat can be a real sign of care. It was a matriarch of the family who always served dinner with the tablecloth, who always put out cloth napkins, who always made sure that the silverware was what it needed to be and that the centerpieces were beautiful, and that sign of honor that matters. And it matters through Shabbat, which is why on Shabbat traditionally you'll wear nicer clothes, you'll use that tablecloth, you'll have that nice Kiddush cup. But it's interesting, of the 4 different verbs, each governing a different piece, right? Keeping or guarding is all the things you don't do on Shabbat, like not turning on the lights or driving. Remembering are all the things you do on Shabbat, like coming to services. Honoring are the things you do to make Shabbat nicer, that tablecloth and those cloth napkins. And oneg, enjoyment, are the things that you do, like eating good food, like studying, like being with people, in order to make sure that you, quote, enjoy Shabbat. The question is, what are we supposed to be doing with the candles? Which of these 4 mitzvot, these 4 commandments, are actually governed by the candles, right? Are we doing it because clearly we're lighting fire, so it's not what we're not supposed to do. But are we doing it for the remembering? Are we doing it for the honoring? Or are we doing it for the enjoyment? What do you think? Raise your hand if you think, well, it actually does fall into one of the categories. Raise your hand if you think it's for the remembering. Raise your hand if you think it's for the honoring. Raise your hand if you think it's for the enjoyment. It's for, interestingly, the enjoyment. The idea is you're supposed to light the candles, and you are supposed to marvel at the candles. You're supposed to see them flicker, and in the marvelous flame, you're supposed to kind of just be present in them. It's the dancing of the flame and the marvel that exists in that moment that you're supposed to then use as a catalyst for enjoyment. And so at some point tonight, as we light our candles, marvel at those flames, watch them dance, enjoy their light, and fulfill one of those 4 fundamental attributes of what it means to do Shabbat. So we're on page 2 and 3.
So I'm going to give you that opportunity to actually marvel at the lights. I'm going to do the bracha, and then I'm going to be quiet for a minute when we're finished. Give you a chance to really soak in the flames and soak in that remembering. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav Beratavanu v'Shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit ki hu yom techila lemikra'e kodesh zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Givanu v'acharta v'otanu kidashta mikol hamim v'shabbat kodecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Wrinkled look.
We're on page number 20. and standing together, we're on page 28. Seated together. We're together on page 31. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Hama'ariv, Aravim.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 34. Adonai page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
We're on page 39. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there's a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together. We're on page 40. Sing with us.
חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Page 42.
Elohim
46, and we rise together for the Amidah.
Adonai Sifatayv Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilatecha.
Say shalom. Shalom Shabbat, we take a moment and we pray for Israel. We add a special prayer, one that was penned by rabbinical student Hannah Ellenson, which speaks about the many complexities of the era that we find ourselves in. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors, we ask that you bless the state of Israel and all of Israel's inhabitants. Makor Chaim, source of life, bless and strengthen those who defend the land and ensure their safe and speedy return home. Protect them and guide them. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One of Blessing, show Israel's leaders your paths so that they may act with wisdom, courage, and dedication, and that they may be unwavering in their pursuit of peace. Strengthen their hearts, but keep their hearts from hardening. Adonai Poked, God who remembers, there are more than 100 people currently being held in Gaza who are thought to be alive, including Oded Lipschutz, 83, Guy Gilboa Dalal, 22, Eviatar David, 23, Nama Levi, 19, Bibin Joshi, 23, Eden Alexander, 19, Nathan Pong Pinta, 35, Shiri Bibas, 32, Yarden Bibas, 34, and their sons Ariel, 4, and Kafir, 1. Matira Sarim, freer of captives, return all those who are kidnapped safe and sound to their homes, without the spilling of more innocent blood, without any more souls being tarnished by horrific acts. Ba'al Harakami, master of compassion, help us hold the humanity and the heartache of the Jewish people, of all the residents of the state of Israel, while also holding the humanity and the dignity of the Palestinian people. As we are made in your image, remind us of your ways. Spread over us a shelter of peace. Fulfill the vision of your prophets. They shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation. They shall never again know war.
Move ahead in our Siddur to page 253 as we offer a Misha Berak for those in need of healing, body, mind, or soul. Misha Berak avotenu v'imotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And let us say, Amen. Of strength, bless the
So I usually don't get political, and I'm going to stay away from overtly being political, though there'll be a lot of subtext to what I'm speaking about tonight. But I do want to start by saying that last night was one of the more disturbing political displays that I've seen. And I've been thinking a lot about the concept of aging and what it means to age in light of last night's performance at the debates. And so I want to reflect a little bit on that, and on Moses, and on the people, and on a few themes that the Torah brings up around aging, because I think it's a worthwhile thing to understand. And it just happens, just by luck, that this week's Torah portion is essentially a Torah portion that is about generational change, and it is about aging. So what exactly happens in this Torah portion? The people have been wandering for between a year and 2 years in the desert. It's taken them about 3 months to leave Egypt and get to the foot of Mount Sinai. They've stood at the base of Mount Sinai for 40 days and 40 nights as Moses received the Torah, the 10 Commandments. Moses brings that down. The people build a calf, and he's got to go back up to get it, another set after he breaks the first. And then God tells the people to build a tabernacle, to build a home in the desert for God. And they spend a lot of time collecting supplies and doing that. For anyone, by the way, who's involved in our building project, we've been talking about it for years, and we're still in our nascent stage. It takes a long time to build things. But a year to 2 years later, the people are finally able to think about entering into the promised land. And so Moses sends 12 scouts, one from each tribe. Now they go, and in chapter 13 of the book of Leviticus, they look around, and they notice that it's kind of scary there. The people appear to them like giants. They see, yes, it's a land of milk and honey with giant grapes that they can eat, but on the other hand, it seems that they'll never be able to conquer the people. And so they come back, and 10 of the 12 convince the people they can't go in. And 2 of the 12, Joshua and Caleb, say we can. They tell the people to trust in God, to believe in the process, to know that they can persevere if only they had the faith to do it. But the 10 of fear beat the 2 of hope, and the people side with those other 10. So much so that they cry out to Moses, asking Moses not to go in because they're afraid to die. And God gets incensed at this. And God essentially curses the people. Now, when I was a kid, I used to think that the people just couldn't find their way out of the wilderness. And that's why they wandered for 40 years. And I remember my eyes being opened up to realizing that the wandering in 40 years is an intentional punishment. And by the way, it's not true wandering. They only stop in 30 some odd places over the course of their 40 years of wandering. God tells them to move to a place, they get settled, they stay there for 8 to 12 months, and then God says, get up and move to a new place. And the whole purpose of forcing them to wander for 40 years was a punishment for their lack of faith in being able to enter the promised land. God essentially says, the reason you're scared to enter is because you've got a mentality of Egypt. And so what I want you to do is die. I need you to pass the torch to the next generation. If you're under the age of 20, you will make it into the promised land. If you are above the age of 20, you will wander in the desert and die there and not be able to enter. And that's what happens. For 40 years, Moses takes the people and wanders with the people until finally they're able to see the precipice of that promised land. They're standing literally on the shores of the Jordan River. But Moses knows he cannot go with them. Later on in the book of Numbers, Moses does this thing to God that, by the way, is not clear exactly what it is. God says to Moses, see that rock over there? The people are thirsty. Go speak to the rock, and the rock will yield you water. And Moses goes over to the rock, and the people are crying out to him in thirst. And instead of speaking to the rock, Moses hits the rock and yells at the people. He calls them rebels. He says, shall I get you water from this rock? And twice, not once, In anger, he smashes the rock so that he knocks off the face of the rock and the water pours forth and the people drink. And God says to him, because you didn't have faith in me, you can't enter the promised land. And for generations, for millennia, people have tried to understand exactly what Moses did wrong. Was it because he hit the rock? Was it because he lost his temper with the people and called them rebels? Was it because he didn't say, shall God get you water from the rock, but instead, shall I get you water from this rock? Which might have been that he now is taking credit for what God does. But other voices just say it was Moses' time, and this was a convenient excuse. In the same way that sometimes when people are fired, they're not actually fired for the thing they're fired for. The thing they're fired for is just the convenient opening that allows them to be fired because it's their time, because they're no longer needed, because they're not performing generally at the skill that they used to be performing at, but yet they haven't done anything specifically wrong until now. Whatever it is, Moses has somehow changed. He wasn't a guy to lose his cool with the people except in major crises like when they built the golden calf. For the most part, he's called the humblest man alive. And when there's rebellions against them, he falls on his face and asks God for help. He doesn't fight them on it. He's also not usually one to take credit. He's very good at giving God the spotlight. But there's something that's changed in him that's different than his many years, his 40 years of service. And it's time for him to go. But what's really important and really interesting is that at no point in the conversation is our tradition ageist. In fact, the tradition goes out of its way to say that just because it's not right for the person to lead anymore doesn't mean that there is anything, quote, wrong with them. We're told, for example, that Moses ends his life with his eyes undimmed and his vigor unabated. Deuteronomy chapter 34. It's one of the last lines, by the way, in the whole of the Torah. So much so that when our rabbis imagine Moses, they imagine him leaping up the mountain, bounding up almost like a ram or a young ewe. And that it wasn't that he couldn't physically lead the people anymore. It was that it was his time. And Moses, who had a stutter throughout his whole life, somehow finds the skill and the strength to speak some of the most that word, words in the whole of the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy. A beautiful recounting of the history and the theology of the law and of the doctrine of the Jewish people. And there are no judgments on Moses. Yes, when Moses tells the history of what happens in the immediate aftermath of him hitting the rock, there is a tremendous amount of pain. He calls out to God. He pleads with God. In fact, the second book of the book of Deuteronomy, the second Torah portion, is called Vayetchanan, which means I pled. I asked God for God's grace. I implored God's compassion. But despite that, and despite God's love for Moses, despite the fact that Moses was the only person to ever speak to God, panim el panim, face to face, God will not yield. God will not bend. There are just bigger things sometimes than Moses' dignity. And God knew that it was time for Joshua to take the reins. And there's a touching scene toward the end of the Torah, twice actually retold, once in the book of Numbers and once in the book of Deuteronomy, where Moses gives the rein to Joshua and says, you are the leader now. There's a place for painful abdication in our tradition without condemnation. There's a place to look at someone and to say, it is your time with love. And who knows if there are enough people to say that in our midst. And who knows if there are enough people to say that in a way that our president might hear. And it's a hard thing. But I want to say that despite all of those conversations that will happen, and whatever the future will hold, and whether he is Moses or not Moses in that moment, the key is to remain from being ageist as we do it. There's too many memes out there looking at our president with a confused face or mocking him for his stutter. There's a sadness, a pall that's over our nation right now as we're trying to figure out whether or not it's right for this person to keep going. But we cannot do it by belittling him. We cannot do it by making fun of him. It sends a message to all of those people who are older that we do not value them. And it sends a message to all of us who will one day, God willing, be older, that we will not be valued too. There's a place for those who are older. As I said, one of the most beautiful books in the whole of the Bible is the book of Deuteronomy. And that's Moses' speech when he was at his oldest. The question, though, is not whether or not the elderly matter. The question, though, is whether or not specific elderly should lead. And that is a conversation we'll be having. But remember Moses throughout. And understand that Moses' humanity was on display throughout this. And as we who have no power and are bystanders and are watching history unfold before us, these next few months will be written in the history books. It will be major. Let's understand that in the same compassion that the Torah treated Moses, and the same humanity that they showed on display, we need to understand that as we talk about the future of the presidency of the United States, there is a human being that we are talking about, a Moses in our midst, and we need to send love his way. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to rise together as we turn to page 282 for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu kigoyei haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, vegor aleinu kechol hamonam. Va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu v'nemar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. Our thoughts now go out to those who we have loved and who we have lost. As I read the names of those for whom we are observing yahrzeit, I'll invite you to rise and honor their memory, remaining standing. Ida Abrahams, Harry Blatt, Zoe Gellen Brown, Samuel Carlin, Cheryl Cavalier, Robert Christmas, Barbara Cohen, Reuben Cohen, Norman Colley, Robert de Blasi, Louis Dennerstein, Sarah Leah Eisenberg, Gertrude Elson, Martha Felstein, Kenneth Frankel, Jeffrey Gellen, Herbert Haas, Sam Hout, Judy Hirsch, Rhonda Kaplan, Elsa Karger, Minna Kimmel, Helen Koch, Sandra Kravitz, Morris Levine, Adam Lucino, Gertrude Lustberg, Bruce Mandel, Lisa Mello, Robert Pikin, Arlene Roth, Sadie Roth, Sylvia Rubin, Elaine Safeman, Stuart Sandberg, Max Saracen, Bob Sarlin, Carl Schramm, Ann Sherman, Leonard Silverstein, Eli Sklansky, Sarah Spiegelford, Paul Spitz, Florence Stein, Ruth Traum, Celia Turkowitz, Teresa Zorling, Barbara Cohen, Reuben Cohen. And those who are in their Shiva and Shloshim periods of mourning, Victoria Khan, aunt of Bob Adelman, Mike Winkleman, father of Amy Winkleman, Martin Simons, husband of Leanne Fisher, Paula Goldstein, mother of Cora Vest, Bernard David Shepin, father of Eldad Shepin, and Lucy Morgan. And I'll invite you, if you are within your 1-year period of mourning or observing a yard site of someone not on this list, to please stand up and recite their name now. We join together on page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yamad divrach v'yotzei v'yamlech malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei t'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudasha barechu. Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiram bi'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Please be seated. So, a few announcements. Tomorrow morning, services are at 10 a.m. With Torah study at 8:30. We now take a break from, quote, clergy-led services for the summer. What's going to happen is that our schedule, normally, by the way, just if you don't know, we take Mondays off. So we work Tuesday through Sunday and then have Mondays off. So we just switch and we work normal people hours, Monday through Friday. And so we're off on the weekends, which means that we have lay-led services with lay-led speakers, lay-led Torah readings, lay-led Divrei Torah. We have one more Devar Torah slot left on a Saturday morning if you want it in August. And next week, Steve Penny is actually going to be leading with Bob Melman. And Josh Weston is going to be our guest speaker. And so on Friday. And so you'll see different speakers throughout, members of the congregation, really speaking about their expertise. Saturday morning is more of a traditional Devar Torah. Friday night is an area of interest, whether it's professional or personal, that they'll be talking about.
And don't be surprised if you see me pop in every once in a while to lead.
Yes. In addition to that, two Tuesdays from now. So Tuesday, the 9th of July, we are having a special guest author come to the congregation. His name is Daniel Silva. He writes Israeli spy novels. He is my favorite author. And what I'll just ask is, if you're thinking about coming, please register. As I said last week, this is a community that registers for everything the week before. His press team and publisher don't like that. And so we hope that you'll register sooner than later so that they can say to me, whew, we got our minimum, which is what we need, okay? So with that, though I have no doubt we'll have a big crowd eventually. So with that, do you have anything to add, Ronnie?
It's cool here in the summertime. Come in. Come be a part of the minyan. Come in and join us for Shabbat.
Thank you. So, all right. So we're going to end. The world is built with love. Olam chesed yibaneh. And in addition to saying goodbye to me for the summer, we want to thank Ed, because I think, Ed, we're seeing you come September, kind of, right? Yeah. So thank you for everything, Ed, over the course of this
Although
past year.
Ed does announce on Facebook often
Yes.
some great gigs that he does. So if you don't want to see him here because he won't be here, go to some of them.
Olam chesed yibaneh.